What's up, Tim? How you doing, bro?
What's up, man? Good to see you, bro. It's been a long time.
Oh, been a while, man. I was thinking about it today, man. I think the last time we saw each other was like 1988, bro. Something like that, man. Ain't that crazy?
Dude, hell yeah, it is. And what's crazy is like, now you're like fully sleeved tattoo wise. I remember in 1988, maybe you got your first one on your arm. It was your name.
Right, man. That's right, bro. That
Yeah.
give you coach made me wear a t-shirt under my basketball jersey because he didn't want it to show.
I thought I gotta admit, man, as a kid, I was like, dude, that's freaking cool, dude. That I was like, right on.
I was committed, bro. I was committed at that point, man. I loved tattoos then, man. So
Awesome.
I was all about it, man. Still love them, So if I had, in fact, most of my sleeves, man, are almost complete cover ups again, like just because I wanted to,
Yeah.
So, might as well. But anyway, man, I'm really stoked to do this show with you, man, because I'm interested in all type of combat stuff, weaponry, anything like that, man. So
Likewise.
yeah, and you happen to be into something that's really cool, man, is fencing. And so I first, man, give me a little breakdown on how you got into fencing to even start with, man. Like, how did you?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. So, all right. So I didn't get into fencing like some people did, where they were put in fencing at 6 years old or anything like that. I didn't even know fencing existed. I can say at like 8 years old, I was in the library and I saw all these pictures of armor and swords, and I was just smitten with weaponry from like day one, like almost out of the womb, right?
Right.
So, but I didn't know there was a such thing as fencing or anything like that. I didn't see it in the Olympics. Never saw anyone do it. And then, but fast forward to the age of 24, and this girl, she that I was dating, she dumped me and said I was going to be a loser because I wasn't doing anything with myself, because I was playing in a punk rock band and all that. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to college. I'm going to go back to college and see what I can do, because every time I had gone to college in the past, I got too preoccupied with the whole social aspect of things because I had no discipline. I had all the creativity and the excitement, enthusiasm you need for life, but I lacked one critical factor, and that was discipline. And so I was like, you know what? I had enough wherewithal. I said, I need, number one, to stop chasing girls all the time. Number two, I need something that's going to just keep me there to the end of the day, because we're both here in Houston, right? So I went to U of E. It's a commuter school. So to stay on campus when you got a 3-hour gap with kids running your own age, you're the same age as you all around. No, man, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go get some lunch or something, and then you never come back, right? You go to the apartment.
It ain't happening. No. Exactly.
Yeah, so I had enough wherewithal. So I wrote the intramurals department, the clubs department, and they sent me. I had them fax me back in the day a list of hundreds of clubs, and I saw this one that said fencing, and I was like, does that mean with the swords? So I called this guy who ended up being one of the students there who ran the club, and he was like, you're not even a student here? And he goes, well, when you're a student, call me up. So I was like, well, I'll be back in the fall. And so when I started in the fall, I showed up on day one, took the intro class, and it was like game over in a good way. Number one, I was smitten with the sport, just like stoked. I mean, I loved punk music. I loved touring around the country and doing all that, but there was nothing like swords and fencing and just like hitting someone. And so from day number one, that's all I thought about, like smitten with the sword and the whole aspect of fencing or fighting with the sword. But a couple of things happened. Number one, I went from I'm talking literally overnight, no discipline to do anything that outside of like play some music or show up to some like just like work a few hours a week just to pay bills, to having complete discipline, working 3 jobs to pay for school and all my fencing training, which happened a little bit later. But secondly, my grades went from Fs. I'm talking literally like 0.001 GPA to A's, straight A's.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was literally overnight. And I attribute that a lot to just the sport in general, because if you want to be at any level, I would say even decent, you have to completely change your life. You got to say, you know what? I'm a fencer, and that means I don't go get messed up anytime. I try to eat well. I have to train with the fencing. I have to understand how to fence, but then I got to train my body to get strong and quick and agile and do all these different things to put the time in, so you start to see the results.
Right.
So that's how I got started.
It's crazy, man, that you say that, because we were the other day, I was talking with 2 guys and we did a show on jiu-jitsu and MMA, and the same type of thing you're saying about the discipline was kind of what they were like. Oh man, I started doing this and my life was better. And I'm, it's funny how you find that focus on one thing and it translated through to other parts of your life. That's really cool, man. Really.
Oh yeah. Well, because then you find the discipline to do whatever. If it's deal with a cruel boss, right? Some like power hungry boss. Sure. Then you that's fencing in itself, right? Or some sort of martial arts, because you got to deal with them, right? You have to figure out how do you deal with this person, how to handle relationships. But to be honest, just not going to bed at 4 a.m. every night, and then being disciplined and going to bed at like 10 or 9 o'clock at night, maybe 10:30, not pushing the envelope all the time. Right. Just it just gets your head right to be able to perform in anything.
Right. And a lot, like I said, man, across the board, I hear that same type of thing. Guys who go to bed early or wake up, at an extra early time end up being more successful and really more focused in whatever it is they're doing.
100%. And I think training, I don't think it matters what martial arts you're doing. I know that I started late. Like I said, most of these guys that compete to try to go to the Olympics, they start at 6 or 8 years old. And I started at 24.
Wow.
And I knew that I loved it from day one, but I would get smoked by like 12-year-olds, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys they got 6 years on you, bro.
They got 6 years on you, man. Yeah. I mean, they were little midgets, but they're smoking you, right?
Right.
So I was like, and then when you go try to fence an adult that's like 20, 21 that's been doing it, and they're on now like the national team.
14 years on you, bro, or whatever.
Dude, they put you over your knee and just start spanking you.
Yeah.
So I had
very humbling.
Very humbling. And actually, I think that's a good thing. I think people, when they lose early on at anything, they learn like another level of mental toughness compared to someone who's got early success. And so I had to put together a plan. I knew, I was like, oh, there's no way I can just do the same level of training as everyone else, because I'll be like freaking 50 and ready for my first like really high level competition, but won't have any athleticism. And so I put together a plan on how to catch up to the people that I wanted to fence at that level. Like, so for the next, like, I think it was 3 to 4 years, I probably out-trained them. I did 5 times as much. I literally was training 40, 60 hours a week in the sport, going to school, working my job. So the sleep was a bit of a sacrifice, but I was able to squeeze in 6 to 7 hours if I was super disciplined. And that was enough to keep going and not get injured. But I was able to start turning the corner at, say, year 3 and 4. I was able to catch up, and all of a sudden you're giving back, you're winning bouts. And I was able to see, I won my college championship in 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah. Awesome. And then I was able to qualify to go to my first national tournament at the division 3 level. So that's like your first entry level to like a national scene, which is a whole nother level of competition after fighting your way up and all the regional stuff. because you
Right.
can't just go to one of those tournaments. You got to qualify for
Yeah,
it. Like,
you have to move up. Sure.
yeah. So I was able to qualify for that lowest division. I think I got like 8th place at the first one I went to. I was stoked. And then by year like 5, I was able to qualify for Division 1A, 6 years. And I was, no, it was 5 years. And I got 7th place in Division 1A and was able to then qualify for the national championships of Division 1. So that at that time, during the way they scored everything, that's basically your top 80 guys in the country. And then I was qualifying religiously for every Division 1 tournament in the nation. So all the Olympic qualifiers. And it was just, I'll tell you what, man, it was just complete dedication to the sport. Nothing was gonna, and that means you have to tell some friends, hey man, I can't hang out with you. And they get pissed off and you're like, sorry, right. I have another goal in mind, man. I'm not here just to go drink 20 bottles of wine. I mean, I'm here to get serious about something. And that means telling like your friends, sorry, I can't be in your wedding. Or it might be, because I can't miss a day.
There's sacrifice to that. Yeah, man.
There is. But when you win that first tournament, when you win, like say, like Texas has a pretty active fencing scene. There's a lot of Olympians that come out of Texas. No one knows about it, but it's the truth. And once I got to the point where I was like, say, number 2 in Texas as far as the saber that I competed in, and made the final at every tournament and was winning tournaments, there's a bit of pride to that because you're like, man, I had to beat all these guys that were beating the crud out of me a couple years ago. And they were shocked. And I'm sure your other competitors will tell you this. As you're going up, there's a lot of people that will try to pull you down because they don't want you to pass them up. So there's a whole mental aspect to this. And you have to take things sometimes personal. Like if someone says you can't do it, you got to say, you know what? I'm going to use that to motivate myself. Even if they didn't mean it, I would use it anyways.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Do that today. If someone, if there's some like opponent or some antagonist that tries to tell me you can't do it, I don't care if it's business, sport, friends, I'm going to go freaking use that as my motivation to prove you wrong.
Right. Man, that reminds me of Marvin Hagler when he was going to, one of his big fights. Yeah, man, love Marvin. And Marvin said all the media, everybody told him there's no way he could win this fight, And he was like, I'm going to win this fight because y'all said I'm not going to win this fight. Like it was the biggest motivation to him because I'm training extra hard because y'all said I'm not going to win this fight.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, if you use that as a motivation, that's a great thing. But let me ask you about your first competition, man, before we go further into that. Do you remember the feeling you had going into your first competition?
Yeah. Like, do you mean like first competition or first like Division
One? The first match, the first time in, what, let me ask you this. Do you call it the mats? What do you call it? So I'll know the proper term.
We call it a bout. Okay. In the sport fencing, they called it a bout.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so in your first bout, how did you feel like stepping in there knowing now I'm actually competing, this is a actual win-loss situation?
I think I was too stupid to know anything. It was probably the best way to put it. So I was all excited and I think it was over in 15 seconds. Like,
is that right?
Dude just owned me. Yeah, because you go in there thinking, oh, I'm gonna go kick his butt. Yeah, I'm excited, and you're too fast. Everything's fast. Everything's jerky. And this was after, about a year of training, and you just got destroyed. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you didn't feel like major nerves or anything like that?
Not the first time. Because I was too ignorant. I didn't know to be. I didn't know to be nervous. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't think I respected the sport enough yet.
Even after a year. Wow.
After I just didn't. I didn't respect it enough because I didn't realize like what it meant. I didn't even understand what it meant to win. Really, right? I mean, because I hadn't really played many sports, competitively at that point. So I didn't know, like, hey, there's a tremendous amount of, let's say, honor involved when you win. right? So I don't think honestly, I don't think I respected the sport enough at that point. So I just went out there. I didn't care, and was just going to go do it. And I got wrecked, even though I was training a lot and I loved it. I didn't know yet what it all meant.
Okay.
But I can tell you what, when I made it to my first Division I tournament, after fighting my way up, and I would study video because we didn't have YouTube then, right? On all
Right.
I mean, I would study endlessly to try to learn, because I loved playing basketball as a kid. I mean, I think we played basketball a lot.
Played basketball a lot, bro.
Yeah, man, we would study Hakeem the Dream, man, like all his post-up moves,
That's right.
and you could get him down. You'd be much smaller, but you could do it.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to study all these top guys, and I would just study. But I got to the first Division I, and all of a sudden, these people that I'd been watching in World Cups, they're in the room warming up. And I'll tell you what, man, the lights were so bright, and it was just like and I felt I had been sick for a week from the anxiety of knowing what I was going to walk into, because I knew it was good. It's like a war. Like those guys, it's different, dude. They do want to just bring it. They want to bring it because they know they have to, right? They got to win. There is no recreation at that point, right? Everyone's trying to keep on the team. And I went in the restroom and I just threw my guts up.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Think about it, man. That sounds familiar. There's so many world champions even of different sports that have that feeling. That's why I asked you. I mean, and so that makes sense, man. Tell me about it, bro.
Well, so everyone thinks fencing doesn't hurt all the, it's perfectly safe, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't hurt. Really? When you got a guy that's been training their body on how to be massively explosive for say 20, 30 years, right? And is a perfectionist with their tool, right? And then they whip it at you going a million miles an hour. You don't think that stings a little bit? Oh, come on. It's you take your jacket off at the end. Yeah, you weren't killed or anything, but dude, you got all sorts of marks.
Whipped up, right?
Yeah. Because these guys it's not like a recreational tournament. The intensity, and then when they score on you, right, they're ripping their mask off and screaming in your face, like massive intimidation. It reminds me a lot of when you watch the MMA guys and they'll scream right in their face and all this kind of stuff. There's kind of an element in that. They try to control it, but you can't. Because think about it,
man. Yeah.
Too pumped. You're too pumped. I mean, you're being calm when you're fighting in the interaction, right? But once you score, it like any other martial art, there's this release, right?
Right.
So some guys, like myself, I wasn't a big screamer once I got good. I realized for me, I have to internalize all of it and use that energy to recycle it for the next touch or the next opponent. Smart. But there are other guys that they would go ballistic and they were brutal. Yeah.
And people think it's kind of, I think a lot of times you'll see people go, oh man, he's being cocky, or he's being disrespectful to that guy afterwards. It's not that at all, man. After that, like you said, it's for some people, they have to release that. They can't even hold it in, or they don't have the control to yet. They haven't learned what you learned to hold that in, to have that for the next bout or for whatever, So,
yeah. Some people just are different. I've trained many different athletes now, and in the history fencing that I do now, the community is somewhat against the whole yelling aspect. And I think as the community matures and it becomes more competitive, that will change, because people will understand. Because even in these ancient treatises that you read, it talks about deceiving your opponent with screaming or yelling taunts at them, right? So we know during the period that was a thing, right?
Right.
It happened. So, and the thing is as that community gets more competitive, the intensity level will naturally rise. And you're going to see that just some athletes, I was great friends with people that when we were on the strip, it was a war, right? To fight. But they would scream during the bout because it's just their stress relief.
Right.
It's, otherwise they're too tight. They have to relax.
It's not disrespect. It's not boasting. It's just how they, it's like some people, you see them, they smile when they're nervous. And you think, what the
Yeah,
hell is he laughing
100%.
about? What is he smiling about? He may be nervous as hell, man. He may be having almost complete anxiety, and that's how he deals with it. Just the same as that, man. I think I agree with you, man, and I hope they do go that route of saying, being more like, hey, this is just how some people deal with it, and historically, it's probably the right thing, like you say.
Yeah, it could be. It's just my humble opinion. You know, I mean, I'm
Sure.
I'm here to train these athletes to make them be the best they can be. And I can tell you, there's some athletes that they have like a high motor, right? And so they shouldn't scream. Like myself, I already just naturally walk around at like a certain like intensity level. The last thing I need to do is scream and get more pumped.
And
If anything, I need to keep. I knew
bringing it down.
Yeah, I need to be chill, right? Like,
Gotcha.
and then there's some people, I just call them like sleepy fencers. They're like so relaxed, and they hit you, and then they're apologizing, and I'm sure you've seen this in other martial arts where they're all, you know, they're just so laid back, and I'm like, no, bro, you have to realize, like, I understand you're a nice person, and that character trait is a beautiful thing, but when the mask goes down, it's work. And that other person wants to beat you, and they don't just want to beat you physically, they want to beat you mentally. And so you have to fight back, and you cannot apologize after like every touch. So that type of person screaming is really good because
right. Yeah. No, I get you, man. In boxing the same way, man. I remember guys who there was one guy in particular I can think of, man. This guy was like, geez, 300 pounds, huge guy. And he was just like almost like a gentle giant. In fact, two guys like that. They were just huge, man. Huge guys, but just so nice that, you know, and it's like, man, we got to get you mean, man. We got to do, you don't have to stay like that, but once you get in that ring, man, we got to get you, you know, to where you've got some fire, man. You know,
you want to go.
You want to go. Yes.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll miss your moments or opportunities.
Right.
Because these, you know, I watch all combat sports. I don't care if it's with a gun, your fists, swords, knives, whatever. I just love immediately when you show me that, then you have my attention, right? Because I can take it and probably find something to use with my discipline. And especially in history fencing, where it's not on what the modern fencers call a piste, right? Where it's not linear. It's like a ring. So now that has a whole nother aspect to the fencing because of all the angles you can choose. So when you watch boxing, they don't just fight head on, right? It's always from the angle so they can be safe. So they don't receive the counter punch. And it's the same in historical fencing. So you can watch a lot of movement in boxing and see how they'll enter the distance, hit, and then they move. Those kind of actions, we call them actions in fencing. Those kind of movements or actions, whatever you want to call it, those techniques, you can those are synonymous. Like these two disciplines are talking to each other all day, because the scoring system that we use, called the international scoring system, it's a scoring system that was developed in Italy. It's like rounds, 3-minute rounds. So very similar. You don't stop.
Yes.
You're moving and you're fighting the whole time.
Wow. Man, it trips me out, man, how even when we were talking the other day, the similarities and the different things. I'm gonna pull up just a couple pictures here, man. Here's one here.
Oh, that's back in the day. Yeah.
Is that right?
That was at a Division I championship. Yeah.
Nice, man. And then
I'm the guy on the left. Yeah.
Is this you right here also?
Yeah, that's me.
Wow. Man, you're moving so fast, the sword disappeared, bro. Amazing, man.
Yeah, no,
that's really cool. And man, give me a little breakdown on your gear and everything like that, man. It's it's got to be, pricey for a person to even get into that, right? I mean,
So modern fencing is, because I do historic fencing now.
Right.
History, and I love modern fencing. I watch it all the time because I can just gain a lot of information, and I'll still take modern fencing lessons myself from this French coach I know. So that was the weapon. That was saber. So with saber, you can attack with the point or you can cut with the sword. right? And you saw I was wearing this silver jacket. So that's called a lame, and that's the scoring jacket, right? So that's the valid target areas. So if you hit someone in the leg with the saber, it doesn't count in modern fencing. Like you just keep fighting. And then the mask there, you can hit them on the head, you can hit them on the hand, the arm, the torso, the neck, and those are all registered as potential points.
Okay.
Those are valid target areas. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's very interesting, man. I'm going to pull up another one here, man. Now,
so
a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is a little interesting picture. So we run a tournament also every year, and people come from all over the world to the tournament. And the gentleman on the right is actually one of the fencers at our club. He's a real good guy. He's actually ranked now number 2 in the U.S. in single rapier. And what he's doing here is he's fencing with 2 swords in one of our events at our competition. And the gentleman on the left is a really good fencer out of Austin. And he's fencing with a sword and shield. And the other guy, and then the guy on the right is fencing with 2 swords. And this tournament is called Rapier plus Auxiliary. So you can use a rapier, and then you could use another weapon in your other hand or a protective device like a shield. So, yeah, and this was the finals. And
I'll pull it back up. So do you have a choice on that, or is it just you're given this is what you're going to use, or you have a choice?
Oh, no, that's the raddest thing about it is it's a mixed weapons tournament on that event. On that event, it's a mixed weapons tournament. So these guys can pull out whatever they want out of their hat, right? Other than a gun or something, right?
Yeah, no muzzles.
Yeah, no firearms. No firearms. But I mean, like whenever I have fenced people in this type of format, I'll do rapier dagger just because that's my preferred. But the gentleman on the right, Vince, he likes doing 2 swords, what's called case. It's a style of fencing that you can use with 2 weapons. It can be advantageous. And the real talented guy on the left, his name is Bo. He's opted for sword and shield. Right. It was a pretty thrilling final.
Oh man, I bet that's really cool.
Yeah.
Here's some stuff that I just kind of pulled up that was interesting to me, because when I started to look into it a lot more, and I noticed in a historical fencing, I'm guessing it was about, and there was a guy with a full samurai setup against a guy who was in a I'm gonna say some type of maybe Italian style armor and whatnot, but it was really neat, man. But do you have a lot of guys? Do you ever see a lot of people in using that?
Oh man, so that study more some of the Eastern disciplines.
Yeah, like samurai or something like that.
So even though we call it HEMA, which stands for Historic European Martial Arts, that doesn't mean that we exclude anyone that studies an Eastern discipline. So we've had people show up to the tournaments and get up somewhat like this. Of course, their face has to be protected, and they'll use a mock katana, if you will, or an iaido, and they'll fight in that style. Hey man, to me, the coolest thing about it is you got to test yourself against any type of weapon, right? Because you don't call each other and say, okay, we're only gonna use this, right? Now there are a lot of tournaments where it's only rapier, right?
Right. No matter what,
only this or only that. But there are mixed weapon tournaments, and you just whatever you're the best at, you just bring it and go.
And go against that style here. It started making me think of all the different disciplines that use swords and whatnot.
Oh,
and
for sure.
Ninjutsu, gosh, one of my favorites, man. Always since I was a kid, man. And like, here's like more of an older.
That's like, right. That's like a 1630s. That's from a 1630s treatise. And you can see this is actually from, I can't remember the actual name of the book, but the title is called The Book of Lessons. And this guy, what this is actually hundreds of plates, which are pictures. And then it has like, it'll have text underneath it on what these guys are trying to accomplish in this picture. So it gives you context to how do you execute that trick or action.
Got you. So it was kind of a instructional, is what you're saying.
Oh, 100%. It's just like, okay, so look at this. Yeah. So this is, Okay, traditional knife fighting. You know who did traditional knife fighting in the boxing world?
Who is it?
Customato.
Did Cuss do it? Is that right?
Yeah. So he
Very cool.
gained a lot of insight to the peekaboo style from that older boxer. The older boxer was a freaking beast. Who is it? Is it Dempsey? I believe.
Dempsey. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but he
Dempsey
also
was
pulled
amazing.
some from this knife fighting, the Italian knife fighting, big in the South.
Got you.
Yeah.
You know, I did not know that, and I actually was doing a small video yesterday about Mike and Cuss and how Cuss adopted Mike and all that stuff. But yeah, man, that is very interesting. I did not know that, but it just tripped me out, man. The just how, and I'm going to pull up one of you right now with your historical style. That's what that is, right?
Yeah, that's quintessential. So, yeah, that's that's my rapier. There's my mask that I wear. You got your protective jacket, and then you'll wear another layer under that, like this plaster on, because the percussion on the historic weapons when they hit you is a bit more. So you have to.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, man. Jeez, yeah, it seemed like you feel that for sure.
Yeah, so you have to make sure you got your safety gear, and I like it, to be honest, because they're very safe. The weapons are safe to fence with, but you don't want to get hit with them all day. So it forces you to get to work and study the techniques to make sure if you get a grazing shot to the arm, that's a bit different than if you're getting continually punctured in your chest. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And plus, if you are, then you're obviously, your defense is not where you want it to be anyway, right? Because that would have been the end of it back in the day, pretty much. Almost
100%,
right? I mean,
100%. Yeah, and that leads to so you've just led to a whole topic. There's like divisions in the historic community on how do you move, right? Because a lot of people are like, well, this guy's just jumping around like a modern fencer, because a lot of the historic community sees these books in like a static state, right? They just see a picture. So a lot of times there's always this ongoing debate on how much movement should be applied to execute the action. Well, I just keep backward engineering it. And we can go look at boxing footage from like the 20s, and these guys are moving, right? And then we can watch duels from like the 20s and 30s on YouTube. You can go watch people stab each other with dueling swords. It's pretty cool.
Right.
And they're moving.
Cool.
And then you can go read extant examples of all these other maestros talking about the period. And why are all the pictures, like those two guys you saw, they're all like super lean. Why is everyone in good shape? Because they're freaking moving. Their whole culture was movement, right? They're walking or riding horses. There is no cars. They're not idle. So they're in shape. So they're going to enable themselves to be able to move with their body really well.
Right.
So why would they not move?
Yeah. Why would you just stand there and just, it doesn't make sense. So
you got to move.
So is it moving more towards that direction now? Or do you think there's a lot of people that are still stuck with they think you should?
I think it's moving more in the direction that it depends on the opponent, right?
Gotcha.
Like if you can just stand front and center and whoop someone because maybe they don't have the appropriate blade work, right? Like they don't know how to use their sword. Okay, great. I'm going to make easy work of this person. Or if someone can move really well because they're just highly athletic, but they don't know how to use their sword, well, then you're going to slow down the action, right? Because they still have to engage you. They have to come in the distance. So when they come in the distance, you mess them up, right? So, I mean, but I think that it's beneficial. I tell all of my athletes that you have to have your legs on point so you can use them at any moment, because why would you ever want to get hit?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the whole point of becoming a master of your craft or whatever is being good at least to me, is being well-rounded. You don't want to just be offensive. You don't want to just be defensive. I know of defensive fighters that they had no offense almost because they were so worried about not getting hit. And I remember a guy, man, he was a pro fighter, and he never figured out, man, why he lost the fight. Man, I can't believe he didn't hit me one time. He didn't hit me one time, and and he wasn't my fighter, so I didn't really, critique him or
Get
say
into
anything
it.
to him.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of a problem he had, is because nobody really wanted to work with him a lot. He was a good fighter. He just didn't put any offense, enough aggressive offense in to win. So even
Right.
if the guy missed every fight, every punch, and you couldn't hit him, I sparred with him before the guy moved like, geez, man, he was greased lightning, man. But the guy being aggressive, they have to score it somehow. And if at least the other guy's moving forward and being aggressive, he wins just by
That's
almost
right.
like default.
Ring generalship, is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so I guess my point is you want to be well-rounded in what.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that to do that is, I'm always telling my athletes, you can't try to win practice all the time. Mm-hmm. You have to experiment at practice. I mean, that's your canvas, right?
Sure.
To go in there, mess it up, try all the stuff you're terrible at, and try to get better at it and figure it out. Because if you only know how to do one or two things, when you fight that other person who either knows how to do those better, or has a much bigger toolbox, they're just going to go, you might hit them one or two times, and then they're going to start pulling the tools out of their box, and they're going to be like, okay, we're going to do this. And then they lock you down and you never hit them again.
Right.
And then they own you.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you only have this defensive move or you only have this offensive move and you're great at those, if that guy figures that out and he's well-rounded or can read that fast enough, he's going to counter it or know what to do immediately. So,
and that's why I always harken back to the training and the athlete, because so much of that communication between the instructor and the athlete, like the athlete has to receive the information. But if they're too prideful, which can happen a lot, right? Because say they're winning a lot. That's like the hardest time. You got to wait for them to lose. So now then I'll just be like,
then you can teach them.
I'm going to shut up, let you go lose. And then when you lose, then I'll go tell you everything you're doing wrong, because you're not going to listen to me while you're winning. And, to be honest, here's my other caveat. If they're winning, there's a mental reason why they're winning. Like, believe in themselves. And that is huge. Why would I ever want to come in between that self-belief? Because that's a powerful tool, self-belief.
Yes, that's a good point. That's a very good point. That really is, man. Sometimes you have to let a guy, if he's winning and he has, even if there's certain things he could do, you have to find the right balance for that, to not change him. You're not trying to change him. You want to better him, but you don't want to change what he's doing if it's successful. So
that's right.
That is very tricky as a coach in all sports, I believe, man.
Man, I think it's one of the hardest things to find a balance, because if they're winning and they might be really unorthodox, okay, but they found a way. Right? It's like, it might not be the way that we've been taught or whatever, but there's going to be unorthodox people in this world who discover new things. And I'm also a person that I'm not going to say that I'm too good to learn from my students either. How about that? Because a lot of times these guys will say something and I'll think about it and I'll be like, you know what? That's a really unorthodox way to do it. But is it unorthodox, or we just, not many people have ever thought to pursue that kind of line of thought to try and make it work? So then I'll go play with it for a little bit and see if I can come up with a way to do it in the realm of good technique. Right. So, and then try to implement it, because then you might kind of fine tune it and it makes their game better.
Sure. Oh, that's very smart, man. That's good coaching, man. You really understand and have a good grasp of training, being a trainer or a coach, because that's a very important thing, to be open to that and to be able to, develop something new, even like that may, make a guy, even that much better. But let me ask you this, man. So how did you what made you, or what point did you make the transition from doing Olympic style to the historic?
Yeah, that's a good one. So, the last time I competed was in 2007. I won the whole Texas thing, right? I went and did that. I was like, cool, okay. And then I go to a Division I knack and I wreck it. Like I'm in the first round of my pools. I take out like an Olympian in my pools. I mean, I felt so confident. I go to my first direct elimination and dude, I had a massive hamstring injury. I mean, like to the point, like I had injured my hamstring before from overtraining. So I knew it could happen at any moment, but I was fencing a guy who I had beaten, I don't know, probably no less than 30 times in my career, like never lost to this guy. Right. And I was doing great against him. I think at that point I was up by 6-7 points. I'm cruising and just, I moved it the wrong way and it felt, horrible, man. Yeah, like it was it wasn't like some of the other hamstring injuries I had. It was like a slow pull that just kept tearing. And so I couldn't attack him anymore, so I lose the bout because I could only go backwards. And I knew at that point, man, I knew, you know what? I think I'm done. Because I'd had so many injuries and I was now in my almost in my mid 30s. And I was like, you know what? I've kind of gotten the most I can out of the competition stuff. And I sport, but I don't want to wreck my body anymore because I was always spending time because now I'm getting all these overuse injuries because I'm getting a little older. And these guys, I mean, to be honest, in the Olympic sport, when I started at 24, a lot of these people are retiring because it's so much an attribute sport. But so I kind of in my mind, in my opinion, I think I overachieved because no one thought I'd ever do anything because I started so late. So I was like kind of cool with it, right? I enjoyed the competition, but that wasn't my main love. My main love was just studying fencing. I just love it. So
that's cool.
I told myself, I was like, dude, I'm going to take a year off and just let my body heal. I'm not going to fence or nothing. But I had started getting close to qualifying for World Cups. So people were like, dude, what are you doing? You know, but that wasn't, I mean, that was cool to me that, you know, you could like maybe tell your friends that or something, but that wasn't my main goal. It just wasn't. Sure. So I took a year, which ended up turning into 2. I got married. And then I started fencing again. I go and within 3 months, I start like ripping it. And now my training partner was giving me my lessons. And this kid, he was much younger than my training partner because remember, I was way old when I started. I think he was 25 or 26 when he was giving me lessons and I'm in my mid 30s.
Wow.
He was probably one of the best coaches I had. And I had all these international coaches I had trained with. He was so talented at being a trainer. And so I started going up right away and I started just ripping it. But then my wife was like, dude, you just had like a kid. I mean, are you really
you're gonna start traveling?
So I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. You're kind of right. I don't want to do that. So I backed off of that. And then I saw this video just on YouTube of these guys fighting with these long swords. And I was like these heavy swords. And I was like, is this a thing? So I call one of my buddies who runs a very large fencing school here in Houston. Alliance Fencing Academy. He at that time, he was the women's Olympic coach, super awesome guy named Andre Gava. And he was like, we actually have some historic fencing starting up at our club. If you want to come on down, man. So he invited me down. I hadn't seen him in a while. That was awesome. And again, that smitten feeling I told you about, I walked in and I was like, oh, dude, I love history. Yeah. Cause I love history. So like now combining the history with the swords and the fencing, I was like down. So, and then I saw these rapiers on the wall that no one was using. And I was like, you know, this big sword's kind of cool, but that rapier, that's just hot. I was like, that's what I could see myself using. So I picked it up, loved it. And these guys at the club, like they kind of thought it was like this like wimpy weapon. And when someone tells me that, what happens? Then I'm like, all right, I'm going to become the best at this freaking weapon. I'm going to make this club so awesome that you guys are going to be looking at me like, what? And so that's that. So I sat there for 2 years fencing with no one in front of a mirror, shadow boxing with a rapier. And I found these books like this. They're like 700 pages long, all about how to use a rapier. And then I started taking fencing lessons from this French dude and the guy at the Alliance Academy, the Olympian guy. He took me on gave me these lessons with the épée, because I had never used a just thrusting weapon. So I just completely went into full training mode from an academic perspective. Hadn't fenced any bouts yet, and just learned how to use the sword to a pretty high level. Then I went to my first competition and made the finals. I was just smoking dudes, just smoking them. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And so then I started, I waited that 2 years. Finally, one person comes in through the door and says, hey, I want to try the rapier. And that was it. And now we have like a full blown school and people going to tournaments.
Awesome, man. Is that right? And so how is the scene with that, man? I mean, I want to go more into your school too, but you know what you're doing with that, but how is the scene with that? I mean, is it a pretty like there's a lot of people doing it. You got to
it's global. Yeah, it's global.
That's
there's thousands of people that do it. And the cool thing with historic fencing, it just doesn't, I've made it just at my school, like not cost prohibitive, right? Like if you want to go train in Olympic fencing, I reckon it's awesome. Go do it. But you got to have pockets, meaning that if you want to train at a level where you're going to get to the national level, you're going to have to, once you add the tournaments into it, $800 a month, right? But that's not what I wanted. I wanted to provide a program that kids could go to a freaking playground, right? Or a basketball court, bring their swords and practice and just like come up that way.
Cool, man.
Yeah, just like other sports, just like basketball, right? Because a lot of it's trial anyways. And you can buy a book for $25, right? And then study it, and then you go join a school, and for about $100 a month, you can then get awesome training and fence a ton of people, awesome community, people that love swords and love fencing, and then go to competitions and put your talk to the test.
Right. No, that's super awesome, man, because I think that happens with a lot of sports, bro, where it's just like people get cost out of it, because they're like, they just can't do it, man. I mean, some people can't afford to drop, this much money into whatever it is. Some sports and things like skateboarding, you're going to get one skateboard. It's going to cost you a little money, to get a skateboard and everything. But the initial cost, boom, you're skating. You can go down to the park, you can hit the street, you can go to a ramp, whatever you want, and you're doing it, you're having fun.
Yep. That's what I love about skateboarding.
Right. And you don't really have to have anything else. If you get crazy and you start really hitting some half pipes and things like that, or vert ramps, you're gonna need pads, helmet, but still, it's not, insane. You're not paying a bunch of money for training or this or that. So that's what's cool about stuff like that. That's really neat, man, that people can get into it without, having to have deep pockets, to enjoy it or have fun with it.
Oh, yeah, man. And you know what, man? I've had parents come where they're like, dude, we don't have the money to do it. And I'm all like, your kid into it? They're like, yeah, bring them. It's like,
man, that's awesome. Yeah.
To me, it's like, I have other businesses that I run, which enables me to be idealistic with my fencing school. And if someone wants to do it, we'll find a way for you to be there, right?
That's awesome.
And
man.
I mean, of course, we need people to pay dues to keep the lights on. But the ones that can't, the dues actually enable some of those people. Or if like this is another thing that happens in our crazy economy. Sometimes the adult might lose their job. Yeah. Well, do you want that person to go be super depressed alone in their house while they look for a job? Oh, sorry, man, you can't come to the club and be with your
friends,
get you right. You know, that's not my style. Me, I'm like, dude, look, let's just, you hit me back when you can. Go focus on your job, but come to the club and be social. You shouldn't have to feel like you're excluded from society because some corporation decided they had to do layoffs. So yeah, I mean, you gotta.
That's awesome, bro. That's really cool, man. And once again, man, that's something that I think translates over to so many communities. Because like my nephew's got his jiu-jitsu gym and everything, and he explained to me difference. And that's one thing that he really was happy to be able to do when he opened his own gym is be able to do stuff like that. Whereas he had been at gyms where somebody didn't have the money, or something was going on, and they were just pretty much kind of. And he was like, he hated it, man. He hated that.
Yeah.
And in boxing, of course, I had tons of kids who couldn't afford, gym dues or afford for me to be able to train them. But the people that did pay me and the people that did pay gym dues, or we may find somebody to sponsor them. Hey, we got this guy, man. He may never fight in his life, or this may just save his life.
Dude,
I don't
that's
know.
the thing. Like you have an opportunity with these type of, like I've seen your nephew, man. I looked at some videos of him fighting,
Oh,
and
cool.
Beast, dude, beast. Love it, man. I was like,
I'm so proud of him, bro.
No, his technique is just sick. But I was, I look at it like I can't turn away an adult, a kid that they want to do it really like at a level, like they're super determined. I'm not gonna, I don't have a heart to turn them away, because I was kind of that kid that might not have had a bunch of opportunities at times. And when someone gave me a shot, I was like, or pointing me in the right direction, I was on it. And if that's what it takes to get the light to go on, you're just giving back, man. That's just
of course,
the way it is.
Man. Of course, you're putting some good energy.
Look at it like it's our duty.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I think so, bro. I think so, and I think that's awesome, bro, that you're doing that, man. So tell me a little bit about your because I told you I didn't want to hold you more than an hour or so. We're coming up on close to it, but tell me a little bit about your school too, man, and what you do as far as how does that work and things like that.
Yeah, so we have a historic fencing school. We focus primarily on the rapier. Again, a lot of people, several, not all, I'd say 50, it's like divided 50-50. Some schools in historic fencing, they do a lot of weapons, right? I look at it like I want to do one weapon, and a lot of the treatises will reinforce this, that if you learn how to fence with the rapier, they call it the queen of all weapons, that you will learn all the basic fundamental skills to be able to fence with any weapon, right? Like you might use rapier to learn, but then you're going to go pick up a short sword, side sword, rapier dagger, spear, long sword, whatever. Because if you just know how to move and you understand tempo and distance, does it really matter what you have in your hand? This is just a tool. And my team is starting to prove this now. We also study the small sword, which is a later iteration of the rapier in ways. But we're starting to prove that our people can go to tournaments. Like the guy that fenced with those two weapons in that picture you showed.
Yes.
He never trains with that. He never trains.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Really, man?
Because he knew how to use his sword. Yeah, to get up the kid on the right. Yeah. Super talented guy, number one. So I give him that. But he never trains with those two weapons. He only trains with the long rapier in his right hand. And and he works super hard. He's super disciplined, super cool guy. But he never practices this. But because he knows how to use the rapier, he won that tournament against a really talented fencer who I believe, from looking at the videos at their school, uses sword and shield almost all the time, at least a couple times a week.
That's his regular training routine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just think people that understand basic fundamentals in any type of martial art can basically cross over and do whatever. We have people that come over from Filipino martial arts, from boxing, and those type of people I can train so quickly because they already have a sense of their body. Their head's usually in the right place to receive information. And they understand kind of the whole like aspect of combat, right? So that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, if you just learn how to use the rapier, you can go use any of these Renaissance or Baroque weapons.
Transfer over. Got you, man. Yeah. Man, that's really neat, bro. That really is, man. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that you wanted to convey or talk about on that, or how people can get, if they want to sign up. I'll definitely put a link and stuff like that. The name of it again.
So it's just All for One Fencing. AFO.
All for One Fencing.
Yep. AFOfencing.com. That's
it.
And
I saw some of your videos too, man. I looked at them. It was really cool, man, on YouTube.
Oh, thanks.
So they can check that out, and I'll definitely put links to all that, man.
We're on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff.
Perfect, man. Yeah, I'll try to drop all those links and everything, man. And
Cool.
it's just super interesting, man. I mean, we could probably talk for another 3 hours about this stuff, man. I mean,
Sure.
at some point, if we come up with something else to even go on, man, we definitely would do another show on it and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I look at it like this, bro. I look at it that fencing is just another form of fighting. And it's like, I think good fencers or good fighters, whatever, you can almost like see it immediately, right? Because they're executing, you know what I mean? And kind of a similar,
Right.
They're different, but there's just traditional things you can see within multiple martial arts. You're like, that person's solid. They get it, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, it's like I say, man, it's so cool, man, when I talk to people from different disciplines of either some type of combat sport, it almost always translates over. The mindset, everything about it, man, is just so similar, even though you're doing a totally different discipline, man. And it's cool as hell, man. It really is, yeah, man. Because like I took karate as starting at like 8. I got into boxing right at about 12 or 13.
Okay.
And I've always loved anything like that, man. Obsessed with any type of ninja stuff. Samurai stuff, collected weapons like that for years and everything. But just how it translates over and it just always amazes me, the similarities.
Oh, totally. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Super cool. Tim, man, thank you so much, bro, for taking the time to talk about this and, having a cool conversation with me, man. We may also have to come back and do a punk rock version, man, talking about your touring and your band and stuff back in the day.
You never know, man. Hey, I'm happy. There's a lot of fun little stories about the van breaking down and stuff, so I can share with you it's like. I can share with you what it's like to have been in a band that was not famous, but played with a lot of famous bands. How about that?
Right. Oh man. Yeah, definitely. Hey man, listen, honestly, man, let's set that up and do that, man. Cause I would really enjoy that for sure, man.
For sure.
And yeah, for sure, man. I want to thank anybody who watches also, man. Thank you for watching this show, man. Please hit like, subscribe, go check out Tim's channel. I'm gonna put all your information in the description of this video, and really appreciate the support. And thanks again, Tim. Really, man. Appreciate it.
Great to see you, Mike, man. Been too long, and just thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Without a doubt, man. Big time, man. Had a great time, bro.